retirement could be one of the biggest problem in next 10 to 20 years. Pension is treated as a normal income. So pension is not tax-free in India. India is one of the countries who are at a very alarming rate.
India is projected to face a pension savings shortfall of nearly 55 lakh crores by 2050.
Let's say you go about 2050, government will not have money to support all the people.
Kuldeep Prashar is the founder of PensionBox, India's first digital pension platform. He's on a mission to transform retirement planning in India with AI-driven solutions. Today, he shares how to reimagine pensions for 340 million Indians by 2050.
In US, there is about 48% people who are covered under retirement saving. Indian percentage is about 8 to 10% that are covered under retirement schemes. So if you compare US versus India, we are way behind.
What are the steps that they can take today to ensure that they have financial security when it comes to retirement?
There are 3 steps. First, second is third.
सबने सुना होगा NPS, National Pension Scheme, the Public Provident Fund. What are some of the key features that the layman should know about these two schemes?
So,
Kuldeep, hi, thanks for joining in. Let's get down to the basics and the alarming numbers. The fact that India's aging population is expected to double by the year 2050. How do you think this huge demographic shift is going to impact our social and our financial systems in the country?
So first of all, the first thing that we need to remember in India especially is to see that we are aging very fast. And we project ourselves as one of the youngest country in the world, which is also true. But we are also one of the aging population country of the world as well. By 2050, we will have 340 million people, which is 36 crore people in India, which will cross 60 as an age group, right? If you look at the amount of systems or things in place which can handle this amount of elderly people that are needed in India, which is not currently ready, be it retirement homes, the financial systems, or let's say the elderly care, the number of wheelchairs when you need in the airport, right? So all those things are not currently ready, and I think by 2050, government has to push, or they are pushing towards building those things up. As one of those guys who are building something in this particular space, what I feel is that we have been not doing great in pension space. Our global pension index, which is a global ranking of about 48 countries who have pension systems in place, has dropped from 41 to 48. We actually rank last in this 2024 when it comes to pension systems. So we have gone from 41 to 44 to one of the last ones
48
in globally. So if you look at the pension infrastructure ready for 2050, it is not. And you can look, the Mercer report every year comes. So in 2025 also the Mercer report will come. It will evaluate India on the pension systems and everything. And hopefully we should go up this year. But I feel by 2050, everyone has to be awakened, be it startups, be it people, be it government or the ecosystem altogether, to make sure we are at least 70 to 60% ready by the time we get there.
India is projected to face a pension savings shortfall of nearly 55 lakh crores by 2050.
Yeah.
What is leading to this huge shortfall, and how are we comparing to some of the other countries like, say, Japan?
So let's take a quick example here. So most of the developed nation in the world have already built in their pension systems and your retirement schemes, or let's say 401ks in US or Japan have a much more social security kind of a pension scheme there. But when you look at developing nations like us, we are still building it up. So youngest regulator of India is a pension regulator. The recent product that they started doing something about this particular space has been done in last 10 years or so. It's still building up. So one of the main things that this gap will become much bigger if we don't do anything about it, right? So government is trying to build something there, try to reduce this gap. But I feel it's not just government who's going to act on it. It's basically us who are not actively saving for our long term, or let's say saving for our retirement or a pension space altogether. So there are basically 3 people responsible for this particular pension gap that we have, or it will keep on increasing down the line, right?
Okay.
One is us,
Yes.
me as an individual person. Second is our kind of employer, who generally have some kind of interference when it comes to PF or let's say national pension scheme or all that.
Yeah.
Third is the government. So this pension system has 3 legs in a way. If any one of these 3 things are not working, we will have this shortfall much larger than that. But government is trying to actively create awareness, trying to push us to do more about it, so that this gap goes not further than that. I am hopeful that we might have not crossed this number if we start acting upon it in next 2 to 3 years or 5 years down the line.
So from these three, let's pick one. That's us.
Yeah.
So let's discuss these three pillars. And given the kind of numbers that we're headed towards, if we do see that pension savings shortfall, what is the worst case scenario for India?
So worst case scenario could be when there was no intervention from the government side, or let's say the three pillars that we talked about, right?
Yes.
So there is one system in government where only government is responsible for your retirement or your pensions, let's say, right? So then most of the governments fail to do that because a lot of pension savings are part of the budget. We basically spend all our money every year or just giving out pensions, right? So if I'm not responsible or company is not responsible, only government is responsible, then government will run out of money by 2025, or let's say you go about 2050. Government will not have money to support all the people, right? Let's say company is only responsible for your savings, then company will run out of money to support you and your long-term goals, right? If only you are responsible for your long-term savings, you can't really do that, because to save, let's say 4 crore or 5 crore, it's kind of people do not even imagine how can we save up that kind of money, right?
So are we headed towards that direction?
We are. So let me put it this way. So in US, there is about 48% people who are covered under retirement savings. So they do have some savings for their long term. They're much more independent when it comes to spending the money, getting better healthcare when they're old. When it comes to India, there are used to be two options. Either you should have some money or you are getting dependent on your kids. And getting dependent on your kids was one of the major retirement planning used to be done, right? Indian percentage is about 8 to 10% that are covered under retirement schemes or have some kind of income. So if you compare US versus India, they're way behind.
8 to 10%, that's it.
That's it. And those are the people who say is that their money will run out in next 10 years. So pension system across globe, India is one of the countries who are at a very alarming rate. And the numbers that we are looking at is something which government knows. We know, most of the people know who are in a finance industry, that retirement could be one of the biggest problem in next 10 to 20 years.
So I want to dig deeper and talk about this person living in Agra, making, say 50,000 or even less than that.
Yeah.
What should they start doing in order to start planning for their retirement now?
So usually what people do as of now, so my recommendation always goes, you should start somewhere. Then you start comparing the products. So if you're earning 50,000 or 30,000 in a way, get the first thing done. The first step of saving for your long term could be Atal Pension Yojana to start with, right? Which could be something which is like 500 rupees a month or 600 rupees a month to put your foot in the door and then open that door, right? So I do not recommend starting off comparing all the products and then, see what's best, what's not. You start saving first and then you start investing altogether. So what I recommend is you get the best out of Atal Pension Yojana, National Pension Scheme, the PPF, which is very famous across our father generation in a way. You should start somewhere to begin with and then pick up from there, from PPF to, let's say, NPS to a mutual fund, and pick up your whole retirement corpus from there.
Okay, fair enough. So what would be the checklist then, according to you, or how is it that you're really helping people to set realistic financial goals to save better for their retirement? What's the checklist or the allocation needed?
So what we usually do is that we came up with one part where we called it dynamic retirement planning. So usually what people do is they make a checklist, they set up a goal, which is retirement corpus or retirement goal, and they create SIP towards it and then go about doing that, right? What they usually do not do is iterate that plan. So let's say I'm a person at 33, I'm earning about 1 lakh, my expense is about 40K on every month basis. The moment I'll get a hike, I'll shift from 1 BHK to 2 BHK. So one part is my inflation is changing 30K to a long term, but my rent increased from 30K to about 40K or 50K now, right? So what we do recommend people, or a checklist that we recommend, is to start with, first create your plan, set up a particular goal which can be changed later as well. Set up, I'll retire at 60 or 50 or let's say 65. create that goal first, understand how this whole thing work, and iterate that plan on a regular basis, at least once a year, to iterate it, saying that, okay, this year my rent was actually 30K. Next year it could have increased to 40K. So my goal should increase or decrease based on how I have performed this particular year. So that is one. Second, most of the retirement savings, most of the retirement products which gives you investment option as well, be it PPF or EPF or National Pension Scheme, most of them give you tax benefits. So that is one of the major triggering factor where people start saving taxes and also start building up their corpus. So if you start doing that, you will end up saving much more taxes as well. So the second thing which we usually ask them that if you have a taxable income, usually go for those products which gives you tax benefits as well, so that you have tax benefits plus your retirement corpus build as well. And eventually the third step is majorly, once you create your plan, you iterate it. Second, you start investing. Third is you monitor that how this whole things go up or down, or how things are allocated. And then you start adding more and more products to it. So the asset allocation comes where you get little mature and then start putting money here and there, and then putting all together or in a one single viewpoint in a way. So your total retirement savings will be NPS or a PPF or EPF, could be mutual fund there, or let's say a couple of FDs that you have done, but all come together to make sure that retirement goal is set.
Yeah.
But the corpus will decide whether we can retire early or not the number of 45 or a 40 or a 30 part, right? So age won't decide whether you can retire.
Let's talk about inflation and how, with retirement saving schemes like NPS, EPF, etc., how do you hedge against inflation?
So generally, all the products, be it a PPF or NPS, in a way, what usually everyone does is that they try to put money where it at least give you return more than 7% or more. So generally in India for last 10 years or about 10 years or 20 years, you'll see that about 6% or 6% or 5% is the inflation rate, right? And that is the case with most of the developing nations, right? And that if you are putting somewhere a money where it goes above 6%, that is kind of beating inflation in a way. So your money is not growing, but it's basically stagnant at the same point, right? So if you put money in FD, which is giving you 6%, inflation is 6%, the value remains same. It's not growing money as such, right? Usually people do that. They try to asset allocate the entire part, saying that some elements will give you 14% or 12% or 13%. Some is on a safer side, which is like 7.1%, which is little ahead, but gives you much more security. There's not risk enough there. That's how I think people try to do it. They try to allocate in a way where they put some money in equity, some money in debt, and then overall they try to beat the inflation part of it. But ideally, your composite, return should be much more better than 6%. That's how you beat it.
You spoke about tax benefits as well with these schemes like NPS, EPF, etc. What are the tax benefits?
So let me take an example there. So earlier, most of the properties were held by men. There are certain categories where if you invest, you will get a certain tax rebates, right? One of those categories is ATCCD, ATC, and ATCCD 1 and 2, right? So ATCCD is the category where most of the investments happen, right? ATC is the category where you get a 1.5 lakh tax rebate. That's the same category where if you invest in PPF, or let's say you invest in EPF, or you have a ELSS mutual fund that is there, you will get a tax rebate under ATC, which is 1.5 lakhs. So there's an overlap. Let's say you are doing PPF, but I'm not. I'm doing ELSS. We both will get tax rebate under ATC, right? That is one. If you go further, National Pension Scheme gives you additional tax benefits. So National Pension Scheme is a product where government wants you to save for a long term, retirement theme product where they want you to save for a retirement savings in a way, right? That gives you additional tax benefit under ATCCD 1 and 1B as well. So in NPS, you'll get about 2 lakh tax benefits under ATCCD 1 and ATCCD 1B as an individual, right? That's a one benefit, let's say two benefits in a way for an individual, right? If a company does it for you, let's say a company decides to do same national pension scheme from an employer to employee perspective, you get additional tax benefit, which is ATCCD 2. That is whatever amount you put in, which is up to 10% or 14% of your basic salary, will become tax-free on the ATCCD 2 part. So if you look at pension savings, EPF, PPF, National Pension Scheme, corporate national pension scheme. All these 4 products give you tax benefits whenever you save for your retirement.
Do you think now with this culture of social media, with this FOMO culture, with people earning more, younger people going on trips, that aspirational living, that's also sort of eating into the intent of saving for retirement versus living in the now, living in the moment, YOLO, all of that? What role does it play?
It does. So imagine there are about 1% telling you to save, and there's about 1,000 people doing exactly opposite.
On your phone, just
there. So it does change your behavior for sure. It will take some time for you to know that this doesn't mean anything. But by the time you already spend a lot and you're already in a credit trap altogether, right? So that behavior is something which, as I said, there's only few companies who want you to save, or there's only few people who will push you to, save some money altogether. But you're exactly right. That is happening across, and especially in the 20s part a lot. But age does make a lot of difference. In 30s, you do know that what is right, what is not. But that is basically you're too late there to start then.
So start at 25, that would be best.
I usually recommend that it depends on the person to person. Let's say I take my personal case. So first I pay off my all debt. I had education loan when I studied. I pay off that and then start looking at, I'll also start doing it. So imagine you are paying off a loan which is 12% and you're investing for about 7 or 8%. Doesn't make any sense. So you pay off all your loans. I did that by 27 and then I start looking at investing, saving towards that particular part. So it is a very personal journey. That's why I said the goal is very personal. Every person has to make their own plan when it comes to doing that and pay off your debt, and then you go about doing that, right? If a person as 21 started doing a job which is decent, like 60,000 or 50,000, do not have any education loan or do not have any liabilities as such, start at 21. There's no hard and fast rule. You should always start at 25 or 21 or not, right? So that is one thing which you should look at yourself and then see, but as early as possible, right? You should always start as early as possible.
Okay. So let's talk about some of these schemes. Sabne suna hoga, probably NPS, National Pension Scheme, the Public Provident Fund. What are some of the key features that the layman who is not very well versed in finance should know about these two schemes?
So first is we need to understand that a common person have 2 options as such. One is a fixed return option, which comes under PF, comes under there. Your FDs comes under there. So any product which gives you a guaranteed, or let's say a set percentage, is a fixed return. There is no equity set there as well. And they are comparatively less riskier as well, right? So FDs and PPFs are comparatively less riskier to do it. The second kind of products are market linked, which basically the contribution is fixed. The amount that we put in is only known. The returns are basically depends on the market, right? There the NPS comes into the picture, the mutual fund comes into the picture. So a lot of people feel that NPS is a fixed return product, which is not, right? So there are 2 categories. One which gives you fixed return, which is PPF. One which gives you market linked returns, which is your NPS. Both are regulated by government bodies. So regulations and other trust factors are secure. PFRDA regulates, Pension Fund Regulatory and Development Authority regulates NPS, which is National Pension Scheme, Atal Pension Yojana. PF is regulated by EPFO, which is again another body which covers that, right? PF, you get a set return, right? So PPF gives you a 7.1%, or let's say EPF gives you 8.15% on the return, which is set, quarterly declared, but this is more market linked. PPF does not have much more flexibility when it comes to where your money goes. NPS, you can choose a pension fund. So out of all the 11 pension funds, let's say SDFC, ICICI, you can choose who will handle my money. So that flexibility is with the person to handle who will handle the money. Second, how much equity should be there. So all these flexibility and the digital way of execution comes with NPS. PPF is more the old school guy who has been there for years, done the job, has proven results, has fixed income as well. So that's a major 2 differences between a PPF and your NPS.
So what do you think would be the right mix to create a diversified retirement portfolio? Is that advisable? You're talking about your low risk, regular PPF, something more growth oriented like an NPS scheme. How do you diversify it?
So the first thing that usually come up here is where you invest for your tax savings first. So you invest about 2 lakh rupees in PPF and NPS together, where you save up taxes, and the remaining money you look at mutual funds, or let's say where you do not have tax savings, but you have other things as well, right? Usually in India, people start putting money in where there's tax saved, if they are taxable income, or then they start doing mutual funds and other things altogether as well. So NPS and PPF comes under tax savings, and then these things do not, and mutual funds and do not come under tax savings. So they do that after they're done with the 2 lakhs, and then remaining money they put somewhere else. So these are one factor that people do consider when you're doing that.
Now, let's talk about PPF because it's often marketed as the Crorepati dream. It has a fixed interest rate of about 7.1%, 15-year maturity. So how realistic is this narrative for the average Indian?
So it's definitely one of the safest choice for people to do it. It comes with a lock with 15 years lock-in period. People usually put money in and they keep that money for 15 years. And then they compound that money again. So they extend that for next 5 years as well. So the people who have a very conservative mindset, they do not want any risk in their retirement savings. They want, risk-free, tension-free part of it. Say that you do not have any exposure to equity, but they're okay with 7% return. They should go for PPF, which is okay. So we both are different, right? So I might have a different preference. Other person might have a different preference as well. My risk appetite will be different than other person as well, right? So if I am a conservative person, I do not like to have risk on my portfolio. PPF was one of the first thing where you put money in, forget about for 15 years, extend that for net 5 years again, and then it gives you fixed returns that pile up over compounding, right? The second thing is where I am a risky person I like to take a risk on the particular part. I put money in the market and then see how things grows. Then PPF becomes less likable on the part. So PPF, for the people who are conservative, they do not want any, and there are people like that. And PensionBox, there are people who choose to buy a policy than putting money somewhere else. They choose to do a FD than putting somewhere else, right? For the people who are doing FD, PPF is much better option than a FD. For that particular person as well. And there's nothing wrong in it. If you are that person, you can definitely go for that. If you want to have a little more riskier option, then you go for National Pension Scheme, gives you tax benefits, gives you much more flexibility as well, and the tax benefits as well on both the things part, right? But gives you much chances to have a higher return. So the last 10 years, if you look at, NPS has given 12.67% return, which is about 5% more than PPF.
Okay.
So imagine 5% difference over a period of 20 years will cost you a lot, right? But again, it depends on the person. If they're okay with that, they should put some money in PPF, get the tax benefits. Then again, the remaining money they should put at a allocation where it gives you higher return, so that there's a balance between the risk part for both of them and get maximum tax benefits as you can. And the products will give you that.
How do investors really decide on the right balance between safety and potential growth? Because if we're taking PPF, for example, yes, it does have, guaranteed returns. It has your tax benefits. But compared to equities or compared to mutual funds, which have historically higher returns of about 12% CAGR, how do you look at, the two?
So there has to be a balance between both. The one major feature which couple of products offer investors is as they grow older, they start shifting money from equity to safer investments, right? So in NPS also that happens. So let's say you start at 25, you can keep your equity till 75% of your asset allocation. As you grow older after 36 and by 65 or let's say 60, most of your money start putting every year 1% will go from here to here, right? So they keep changing their allocation as you grow older. Because by the time you retire, you should have most of your money in a safer assets. So depending upon your age, let's say you are 25, you have much more exposure towards equity. 35, again, you can reduce it a bit. 40, you can reduce it a bit. And by the time you retire, you can have up to 15% to 25% of equity exposure in your total corpus. So ideally, depending upon आप किस age में हो, which age group you belong to, accordingly you can choose PPF versus equity investments. I believe if you are younger, you should go for higher equity exposure. As you grow older, you reduce your equity exposure to about 15 to 25% by the time you retire. There was a case happened in US where multiple cases actually happened in US when the 2008 the crash down happened.
Yeah.
A lot of people who have put money, their 401ks crashed down from a 400k to about 40k. That happened. If that happens to a person who is a 65-year-old and
That's
their entire
detriment.
retirement saving goes down with just one market crash,
Yeah.
that is not something you will look forward just for the high return.
That's scary.
Yeah. So according to the whole methods, ideally as you grow older, you should reduce your equity investments to about 15 to 25%, so that remaining money is much more safer. They do not change as per the equity market changes, but also if they change, there's much lesser impact comparatively. So depending upon the age, you must choose the equity allocation, and as you grow older, you should always have
Taper
lesser,
it down.
Yeah.
Now, if we were to talk about NPS, despite the fact that the tax benefit is capped at 2 lakh rupees, it's 1 lakh, 1.5 lakh under Section 80C and then 50,000 under Section 80CCD. There's no limit to the contribution to NPS. So how do you sort of, leverage the flexibility beyond your tax motives?
So most of the people do not know this, but NPS has 2 tiers in it.
Okay.
So NPS tier 1 is your pension account and tier 2 is your flexible account, right? So under same national pension scheme, there are basically 2 different kinds of accounts. The tax benefits you get is basically with tier 1 accounts. So let's say you want to save some taxes up to 2 lakhs and then corporate NPS. The whole money will go in tier 1 and there are lock-ins to it, all that, right? So that is your retirement account in a way. But remaining money, ideally, you should put in tier 2 because that gives you a benefit of withdrawing that anytime. So ideally, a person, if they were planning for their retirement, they can use NPS as a tool where put money in tier 1 to get the tax benefits and remaining put in tier 2 where you can withdraw anytime, but gives you similar returns and similar functionality altogether. So let's say I'm a person, I have 3.5 lakhs to invest and save taxes this year. I'll put 2 lakhs under ATC and ATC CD1 where I can save taxes on NPS and PPF, or if I'm only doing NPS, the whole 2 lakhs. Remaining I'll put in tier 2 where I can withdraw it anytime whenever the need comes. That way. So I think utilizing the simple method where first the income comes, you put money where the tax can be saved. When the tax saving bucket is full, you start putting money somewhere else where much more higher returns can be given that way.
And NPS also requires subscribers to purchase the annuity for regular pension payments upon retirement, which are going to be taxable as per the income tax slab. So how do you think that people should account for these tax implications?
So pension is taxable in India. So let's say I'm a person who's getting retired from a government job, I'll get a pension. If pension is treated as a normal income, so pension is not tax-free for us. Annuities as a product gives you recurring income. So as a thumb rule, let's say I buy an annuity of 1 crore. Let's say I buy a product of annuity. I invest about 1 crore from my retirement savings. I will get about 60 to 70,000 rupees a month for about 99 years of age. So for life in a way, right? That's how the annuity part works. The intention of government to put annuity clause in NPS is to make sure that when the retirement comes, and let's say you have 4 crores, you do not spend the entire 4 crores in your day-to-day expenses, right? The intent is to make sure that you have certain amount logged in for a long period of time where you get every month on month basis, you'll get that. And whenever you get that, it will be treated as a normal income and then you file the taxes accordingly. So it will be part of a day-to-day your filing of taxes and it will be treated as a pension. The way to save on that is to ensure that we reinvest the pension we are not using. So let's say I'm getting a pension of 1 lakh and my day-to-day expense is about 50,000. The remaining 50,000 can be invested again. So reinvesting of the pension can happen when that phase comes. That is an important part to save up on the taxes, and also the elderlies are taxed different compared to the normal 30-year-old or a 20-year-old in a way. So the tax slabs are different for elderlies versus a normal below 60 part. So that could be another way to do it.
There's significant flexibility as well when it comes to NPS. You can change your fund manager as well, asset allocations twice a year. So how can a regular person actually leverage these benefits?
So that's one of the main thing where the behavior part comes, right? So a lot of us wants to know who is handling our money. A lot of us wants to know if I can access my money or control my money in a way. When we put let's say buy any product, be it a PPF or EPF in a way, right? We do not know how our money getting invested or how our money getting, managed on the part. But when it comes to NPS, you can choose your fund manager. If you like SDFC, you choose SDFC. If you like CK, they are not doing well, and you like Tatas, you go about doing Tata. And that is a flexibility a person should have when it comes to who will manage my money. So that is one part where if you have a preference. So a lot of people who are like my father's age might prefer SBI, then I prefer Access, right? So depending upon how we like, you have the option to choose and change whenever you like. That is one major part. That is one of the benefits that we should always have, and NPS gives you that benefit.
Yes.
And people should utilize that.
Yeah.
Second is the asset allocation. So let's say I'm a 25-year-old, I opened my account. I didn't know at that time how should I place my equities. I can change those equities based on I am aware now. So as we grow older, we get more financially aware as well. So from 25 to 28 to 30 and 35, we should always have that option to change it. So let's say I made a choice at a 25-year-old person. Now I want to change it, but there's no option for me to change. So NPS gives you that option. Later, if you realize that you want to change your equity allocation, you want to change your fund manager, that is possible, because as a person in 20s and 30s and young people, they want to have that visibility and control whether how things change. And that is one thing which NPS gives to you.
Okay. How important is the fund manager when it comes to NPS? Anything that you should be looking at in terms of criteria?
It's very important. It's as same as, let's say you book a cab. How important is that your driver is awake, he's not drunk, he's driving not rashly, right? So you look at all the ratings, you watch the ratings and you see, okay, if he's driving wrongly in a way, then it same as that fund manager, right? So you are giving your hard-earned money to a person, or let's say the entity, to invest the right way that they should.
Yeah.
Right. So as important as your day-to-day driver in your cab, and make sure that you drive safely and reach the destination safely. Same way the fund manager is to make sure that they allocate the funds and then move forward from there. Right? So they allocate, they make sure that they invest the money in the right way that you told them to do. And that's how important is the fund manager.
Okay, like the driver of your cab.
Yeah.
You brought up budget. I just want to ask, NPS, of course, is mentioned every year in the budget. Anything that individuals or the common man want to hear from the finance minister regarding NPS or pension, etc., this budget?
I think there are two parts to it. One, for the people who are near retirement and already retired, they obviously want certain tax benefits, or let's say the annuity changes in NPS, right? That's one part which is there. For the people who are in 30s and 40s, the NPS Vatsalya, which is NPS for kids, recently got launched. That tax benefit is something which can expect in this budget along. So there are two major expectations from the budget, which is for the elderlies when it comes to the annuity part of it, the flexibility of choosing an annuity, or let's say checking off that entire 40% on the part. Second is NPS Vatsalya, which is NPS for kids, which is the newest of the product.
Can you tell us more about it?
So pension as a whole, as a product, they have launched it in a very new form where a guardian or a person or a parent can open an NPS account for their kid.
Okay.
And they can also contribute to that. The idea behind it is that the compounding can go from 20 years to about 40 years time frame. So let's say you have a kid, you open an NPS Vatsalya account for your kid, and then you start putting 1,000 rupees a month, let's say. By the time they turn 18, they won't have to start from zero. They will already have some saving backed up, and that will compound over the years as well. So it's kind of a heads up from a parent to a kid. But then after 18, they can choose to convert to a normal NPS account and take it from there. That way.
For our viewers watching, people listening, regardless of their age, what are the steps that they can take today to ensure that they have financial and emotional security when it comes to retirement?
So I think I will say there are 3 steps to solving this particular problem, and it is very personal to each of the individuals, because this is a personal topic of how you want the retirement to be, when you want it to be, where you want it to be. First step is to get started with a simple basic plan. First, get your numbers right. If you want to retire early, put down those numbers saying that 45, how much is the corpus, 55, how much is the corpus, 60, how much is the corpus, and how things change. So the first thing is to get rightly aware and get that right number set for you in a way. Second is to iterate that. As soon as you get a hike, as soon as you move from 1 BHK to 2 BHK, your inflation part is one, but your lifestyle changes. That is when you iterate. So yearly or a bi-yearly, you iterate that, right? Third, obviously, as I said, you don't have to go about doing everything. You just start saving and then investing on the third step. And always remember, there's about 99% of the companies out there who want you to spend. There are only few who actually want you to save for your future. And that's one thing which basically summarizes the entire globally perspective.
Thanks, Kuldeep. I think you've really opened our eyes to the fact that it's never too early or too late to start saving for retirement. So I think those have been some of the key takeaways. The fact that it's alarming that the global pension index in India has dropped significantly to the lowest level. There are three parties involved, which is the government, the employers, and you. So when it comes to you, start somewhere, but start saving for retirement. Try to diversify your retirement savings schemes. Do try to reduce your equity exposure as you get older. And most important, consult a qualified, unbiased financial advisor who can help you better plan for your retirement. We'd love to know, have you started saving for your retirement? Do put it out in the comments section below. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. We'll wrap it up on this episode. Do stay tuned for our upcoming episodes, and it's goodbye from me.